Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this morning we're going for another wander around paradise. I'm joined, of course, by my two wingmen. It's Tommy Sheridan. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning, Phil John.
And also Kenny Ross. Kenny, you are a familiar fixture up here at Celtic Park, and you're looking as though you're ready for a game yourself.
Well, I think I'm past my prime, Paul, but I would like the opportunity, but never mind.
Talking about opportunities, we had an opportunity at the weekend to almost seal the title, and I think it's all right to say that we've got one hand on the trophy. Tommy, how did you enjoy that on Saturday?
It was absolutely brilliant, and I know, Paul John, we have to always be dignified about these things. You can't say that we've won, but the truth is there's no way we're going to get beat twice in the next two games, so I think we have. I think that was a championship winning game, a lot of pressure on it, but in all honesty we probably won it a couple of weeks earlier at Ibrox when we went there and avoided defeat. I know a lot of fans like myself, after the way we played, we were disappointed only to get 1 point. But if somebody had offered me a point at breakfast time that day, I'd have snatched it out of their hand. But the way we played, brilliant. So from my point of view, we more or less, in my opinion, won it there, but we set the ceiling it on Saturday.
I think when we look back on this season, Kenny, you know, there's been some difficulties that Brendan's faced. But, you know, coming into a game like this, he spoke about the club coming alive, and I think Brendan did as well. How impressed have you been with the way he's handled all of this?
Well, one of the big factors this season has been managing the injuries. And we've had key players, particularly in the first half of the season, who have been missing, like Abada, Hatate, CCV was out for a while. And in recent times with Maeda and McGregor being out, having to manage all of that, it's been that's when you see you've got a good manager to be able to get through all of that. But certainly in recent times, having Maeda back and certainly Callum McGregor has been a massive bonus for us, and I think that's what's got us over the line.
Callum McGregor, let's have a wee chat about him, Tommy. You know, we've seen, you know, big captains in our time watching Celtic, and Callum just, you know, gradually is creeping up to the 500 appearances alongside his teammate Jamesy Forrest. One of the most decorated Celts in the history of the club, and you've seen in the last few weeks just how good a leader he is.
He's an extraordinary player, all-round player, Paul John. A bit, if you compare, because people want to compare, because obviously Bruni was there just before him, and he's a different type of player for Bruni, because Bruni is more demonstrative, and Bruni is much more of a playman as far as the crowd and all that's concerned. Callum doesn't tend to go into that stuff. He just does his stuff on the park, lets his effort actually speak for him. And I think we were all, Kenny and I were sitting together at the game, we were all on our feet against Hearts when he, in the second half, when he does that lung-busting run back from our corner to try and stop their attack, and he puts in a great run and then a great tackle. And that made you think he's back, because if we're honest, he came on at Ibrox and he probably actually lowered their level. Awata up to then had been playing great. We brought Callum on, and a couple of wee sloppy passes, probably one that leads to their goal. I've got to blame Yang as well. I think Yang should do more to stop the being dispossessed. However, what I'm saying clearly is he's back, and he's absolutely phenomenal.
Let's talk about the performance then, and the fact that when we've had to get a result, Tommy, this season, Brendan Rodgers has got the men up for it, he's got the selection right, and he's got the result inevitably. I mean, only 1 point have Rangers won during the Glasgow Derby games this season. How big has the mentality of Brendan Rodgers been for us?
Listen, you go back through the seasons, particularly 90s onwards, but late 80s, I used to speak to Frank McGarvey about this. See the Celtic Rangers games. They're absolutely key. You don't, before you start a season, I know you can't be disrespectful to the other teams, but in the 80s, obviously, Dundee United, Aberdeen, Hibs, they were taking points off both sets of the Glasgow club. So that was happening, it was a reality. But see, from the mid-90s onwards, those fixtures determine who wins the league. It's just the way it is. And this season has absolutely brought that into focus again. You cannot go to a situation where out of 4 games, You lose 3 and draw 1 at home and you celebrate. I mean, come on. How many Rangers fans are embarrassed by the fact that they got a point at home and they were running a lap of honour? I mean, they must look at that now and think, oh man, it's the most embarrassing situation. And I know I've got some old Rangers fans as friends and they were utterly embarrassed by that. In these games, Rodgers, he's actually motivated them, he's organised them, and he's got them up for it. And for me, I know it's not universal, but for me, Paul John, he was the best appointment we could have at the time, given all of the context, given all of the circumstances where we needed, and I hate using this word continuity because it's used in politics as well in a different context, but he gave us the continuity we needed at a time when there was turmoil, because Big Ange was outstanding, absolutely. We loved him to bits, and I feel he let us down a wee bit, because I think in many respects we had a go at Brendan for leaving us.
Yeah.
And the truth is all of the various communications come out. The truth is, I think Big Ange was already working his ticket as well. So I think from that point of view, I was prepared to open my heart again to Brendan on the basis that he'd done nothing worse than what Big Ange had done. And he was the man for me to take us through that wee piece of turmoil. Point I would make finish on that is that he came in for a lot of criticism at that time, and a lot of pressure at that time, but he wasn't playing with his own squad. He was playing with a squad that he'd inherited, and he managed that squad as best he could. And if you look at it now, none really of the new signings have played a major role in what's happened recently as signings or people that Brendan's brought in, or people that were there already. It's almost a weakened squad for last season, and he's done absolutely wonders with it.
When we look at the star performers this season, Kenny, last night, the star attraction at the Player of the Year dance was, of course, Matt O'Reilly. He kind of scooped up all the awards, didn't he? And I mean, he's a special talent. He's a cracking player, but I think he's got even better under Brendan. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I think it's there for everyone to see. Throughout the season, he's just get better and better, hasn't he? But then, of course, you look at the players around him, and in recent months we've seen Hatate, we've seen McGregor around him as well. That engine room, if you like, has really emerged, and it's really came at the right time for us. You talk about key players, and I think, for me, he's been one of my favourite players in the last 14 years, and it's James Forrest, isn't it? I mean, he's a stalwart of the Celtic team, one of the most decorated players, as you mentioned earlier. And I think what people maybe have missed possibly is that this is going to be his 12th league title, and he's going to equalise Alec McNeil's record, and it's stood for 100 years.
Incredible.
You know, it's incredible. He's going to equal Billy McNeil's record of 23 trophies, and if we win the Scottish Cup, he's up to 24, one just behind Bobby Lennox. So his record speaks for itself. I feel he's kind of underappreciated in some ways by Celtic support. I don't know why that is. They're saying he's getting a bit old. He's only 32, right? I mean, he's 33 in a couple of months. But for that kind of position, you know, obviously a younger man's going to be slightly faster, etc. But his speed's in his head, and you've seen his experience shine through. After the winter break there, we've seen Brendan Rodgers mention him and say that he's going to play a key part in the run-in. And that goes back to him picking the people he can rely on, people he knows. He was here the last time Brendan was here, and I think he's relied on somebody like James Forrest to get us over the line. You can see his experience, you can see his knowledge, his touch. It just shines through. And no disrespect to other wingers like Yang or Palmer, but I do wonder why he hasn't played him before now. You know, I think he could have played a bigger part in the earlier part of the season, particularly when we had a lot of injuries. But seeing him now, I think he's been a key factor in getting us over the line.
It has, and it's come a wee bit late. I would agree with Kenny, Tommy. I would have liked to have seen Jamesy coming in a bit early, but I understand why Brendan wanted to give some of the new wingers game time as well.
Listen, you've got to look at what Brendan inherits. He inherits a squad, and there's been good money paid for the likes of Palmer, the likes of Yang, and obviously on the training ground, these guys must be showing something. They must be showing wee bits of skill and talent. Undoubtedly, they've got it. I mean, you know, you see it in very, very small excerpts. However, we also know there's a difference between doing it in a training ground and doing it on match days and having that winning mentality. You look at James's performance on Saturday. It was a winger's role. He did what we all want wingers today. Sometimes he took it down the line, sometimes he took it inside. That leaves the fullback. We've played football. You know, if you play against a winger, the one thing you want to know for certainty is what is he going to do? Is he going to go wide all the time? Okay, I know I can deal with that. But see if he goes wide and inside, then you've got a problem. Our difficulty with the likes of Kuhn and the likes of Yang is they were one-dimensional. They always go inside and they always pass it inside. James actually tried to take on his man. You look at that statement of intent, 2 minutes gone. What does he do? Takes it down the line, puts it across, we nearly score. Okay, it was going to be an own goal, but it was nearly a wonder start. And his whole performance thereafter, he had Barishic's no known, was she going to go down the line or is she going to go inside? He didn't know what to do. And for me, the guy, Neil Lennon, went out his way in the commentary to say that he's the most underrated player in Scottish football. And that's the truth. We underestimate him here in Parkhead, but I think he's underestimated in the whole of Scotland.
I called earlier this week, Tommy, I called Brendan Rodgers a mentality monster. How big is the psychological aspect of going into the cup final now? We're able to look ahead to that. How big is that aspect of the cup final?
Listen, the cup final is going to take care of itself, because if you can't motivate yourself for a cup final, then you shouldn't be playing football. But what Brendan has done is he set us up now. Imagine getting into that cup final if we hadn't won the league. Imagine how we'd feel, how down we would be. We're getting into that like giants. We're getting into all the warriors into the arena. And I'm absolutely confident, as long as our midfield three do what they've done in each of the games that they've been playing together recently, they cannot be tracked. They cannot be played. They are outrunning everybody that they're coming up against, and some of their intricate 1-2s, first touch football, it's just extraordinary stuff. So from my point of view, I think we are ready for the cup final.
We're ready for the final, and can we even look further ahead, Kenny? Can we look to the summer and what we have to do to stay ahead, to stay the dominant force, but hopefully also build something where we can progress in Europe?
I think it's crucial, and we're on the threshold of getting a pot of gold from the Champions League money. It's a bigger prize than what's ever been there before. The club's obviously very healthy in terms of its finances, so the resources are there, and I think that's what's going to be crucial for Brendan, that probably for the first time with a big transfer window, he's going to get the opportunity to kind of explore and look at the quality players that he's looking for. And I think we're going to lose a couple of real key players. I think there's a lot of talk about Matt O'Reilly leaving, which would be tough for us, but it's about replacing that quality, and I think that's the key point for Brendan. And then of course Europe's the big thing. It's all very well getting into Champions League and getting the money, but you want to perform, you want to be able to kind of hold your head up and say, look, we've done well there, and I think the time's coming for us to do that.
The time is now. Thanks to my special guests, Tommy Sheridan and Kenny Ross, for joining me for a wander round paradise. Join us again tomorrow for a Celtic State of Mind.